Hi, it's Dr. Percy again, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about anger, boundaries, and interpersonal conflict. And it so happens that right now is a great time for me to talk about this because my family just came to visit me for the week. And I'll tell you, my family actually keeps really good boundaries. They respect my boundaries very well, and they do this because I have trained them to a T. And with these easy concepts that you're going to learn from this video, you too can train your family to respect your boundaries. But in all seriousness, anger management is one of the most frequent things that people come to visit me for. And when we're talking about anger, we are necessarily talking about boundaries. This is because, as we reviewed in last video, anger is an emotion that has a very specific and important purpose. It is to inform you that your boundary, or that a boundary of yours is being crossed, and to enlist your help in setting that boundary. Now, it's important to note that second part because when your body is speaking to you through emotions, it is asking for your help. And if it gives you anger and you don't respond to it and you don't help it, then your body might just set the boundary itself. And that is how you end up with a restraining order. So most people know what the feeling of anger is like, and we all have different ways of describing it. One description of the sensation of anger that people describe to me is that they feel like there's a beast inside. They feel like there's a beast inside of a cage and it's just waiting to come out. And as soon as the cage breaks, that beast is out. And you know what happens then? A can of whoop gets opened up. And that's if your beast even has a cage to begin with. So the moment you feel that heat, the moment you feel that adrenaline, that sense of anger, what do you do? First of all, you need to address the beast. And you can tell that beast, thank you for letting me know that a boundary of mine has been crossed. And don't worry about it. I'm going to take it from here and set the boundary so you don't have to. So next, what do you do to help set that boundary? Here is a key concept. What your goal is here is to set a boundary, to define your boundaries without necessarily going over and crossing anyone else's boundary and ticking them off. Because if you do that, in turn, they're going to say, oh, you ticked me off, and they're going to tick you off, and then you're going to tick them off, and they're going to tick you off. And then you just have a chain reaction of craziness in which nothing gets accomplished and you have two hurt people. So I'm going to talk about 3 rules of interpersonal conflict that make that conflict productive, that actually arrive to something. And these are good rules for interaction in general. But in this concept, we'll just be talking about interpersonal conflict and anger. So the first and most important rule is to speak about your own experience and not about others. The second rule is to be honest about your experience. And the third rule is to be curious and open to hear about the experiences of others. Now, we're going to focus in this video on the first rule because it is the most important and it will keep you out of the most trouble. Speaking about your own experience and not about others, what that means is that you are saying what's going on for you right now. You are not talking about others. You are not telling others what they did. You're not telling them what they should have done. You're not telling them why they shouldn't have done that. You're not telling them what they always do or who they are because of it or where they should put what they just said or where they should go based upon what they just said. You are strictly speaking about you and your experience. So let's get into some concrete examples. Let's say someone says something that's hurtful to you and it doesn't feel good. You want to set a boundary. What you first look at is, what is my experience right now? And you speak for that. And that might be, whoa, I didn't see that coming, or, that really hurt, or I feel angry right now, or it feels pretty crummy to hear you say that, or I disagree, or I'm sorry that you feel that way. So you might notice that tends to get different responses than you're wrong, or I knew you were an idiot, or I knew you didn't love me, or don't you talk to me like that, or why are you so angry? Sometimes when people are angry, they'll say dramatic things like, you're trying to destroy me. Now stop and think for a second. How are you going to tell somebody else what their motive is, or what their feelings are, or who they are, or what they should do? No, that's their job. Your job is to speak about you. And this works because when you are speaking about your experience, you are staying on your side of the street. You're not saying anything about anyone else. You're not crossing into their territory. In that way, when you stay on your side of the street, no boundaries get crossed, and the conversation is a much safer and productive one. So let's move into this a little bit further, because there's a lot you can do with this. Actually, there are 5 legal maneuvers pretty much that you can make. The main ones are these. I'm going to read them to you. Stating your present experience, which we just talked about. Stating what this experience seems like to you, or what meaning you're making out of it. Stating what you would like your experience to be, what your intention is, what your motivation is, what the desired outcome is. 4, stating what you're curious to know about the other's experience, and sometimes why. And 5, stating your actions, what you're going to do as a result of the conversation that you just had, what your decisions are going to be. The first one, stating your own experience, is just a matter of saying, what is my experience right now? Asking yourself, what is my experience right now? And speaking for it. And gave you some examples of that just a minute ago. I didn't see that coming, or that's a surprise, or goodness, I don't know what to say. Or I'm feeling really angry. I disagree. The second possible maneuver is saying what the experience seems like to you. And you always say what it seems like to you, and you verify, because you don't know. You can say, oh, it seems like to me you're pretty angry. Is that the case? Or, by the look on your face, it seems like you didn't hear what I just said. Is that true? And there's a lot of things that you can say that it seems like to you. But whenever you want to say something about the other person's experience, don't just make an assumption that that is the other person's experience. Don't just assume that they're angry, or assume that they don't care what you have to say, or assume that they don't love you. You would say, it seems like this to me, but I'm not sure. Is that the case? You ask, you say what it seems like, and you verify. The third maneuver, which is very effective, is stating what you would like your experience to be. This could be stating your intention, like, I'd really like us to have a conversation about this, and I'd like us to reach a resolution that we're both okay with. You start a conversation like that, then you minimize your chance of having a battle. You can make a request. My brother-in-law will tell to his son, I'd really like to have your attention right now. Typically, they will respond a lot better to a request than they will a demand, even though sometimes a demand is made and sometimes they do respond. Sometimes they don't respond to a request. But in general, it'll get a better response. Especially when you're talking to adults. Adults don't want to hear demands. They are open to a request, although they can always say no. This isn't about controlling people. This is about speaking your experience. The fourth is stating what you'd like to know from the other person. Asking what you'd like to know about their experience. That goes for the verification that we said before. Let's say if it's something seems like to you, you can ask. Of course, you're not going to tell someone that they're angry at you. Better off to ask, are you angry? Or did I upset you? I didn't mean to do that. Sometimes you'll need to state why. Often your reason for asking a question might be misinterpreted as trying to look for a way to attack them. Kind of like, where were you last night? The answer you're likely to get, if it sounds accusatory, is none of your business. So for questions like that might get misinterpreted, you might want to state why you're asking that question. I'm really curious where you were last night because I didn't see your car in the driveway. So that is stating your experience. That's being fair, and that's stating why you want to know. And that'll help the other person to answer your question more specifically, to give you what you're looking for. So next is speaking for your actions. And this is a key part of setting boundaries because it speaks to what you can and cannot do given your current set of priorities. It also helps you to define what you might need to do as a result of someone else's actions, so as a consequence. For example, in terms of what you can and cannot do, something that you might say to a kid is, I really wish that I could buy that toy for you right now, but I can't because Daddy really has to watch his budget right now. Another thing you might say to a kid is, I wish I could let you jump on the bed right now, but I can't because I feel this really strong need to protect you and to keep you safe. And that's what I'm going to choose to do. I'm sorry if that makes you feel sad. I understand. Another simple example that you might use in a more adult situation is that I can't meet you at that time because I have other obligations. I'm sorry. Or I can't really agree to that arrangement because I don't think it's going to be fair to me to do that. Or I really wish that I could fulfill that need for you, but I don't think it's possible for me to do that. But let me tell you what I can promise to do. The next main way of speaking about your actions is speaking about what you might have to do in response to someone else's actions. So, classic example is, if you keep talking about my mama, I'm going to have to punch you in the face. We hope that it doesn't end up like that, but, that's an example that you sometimes hear. They're given a warning. The second thing, probably a more mature response than the one that I just mentioned, would be, the way that you're treating me right now, I don't really feel safe talking or having this discussion right now, so I'm going to have to remove myself from this situation and go to the other room. Thanks. So that's a situation that we may meet when we're with someone who is not controlling their behavior or saying things that are really critical, and you just don't find yourself able to have a conversation with them. Next, conversation that I heard or actually had with a child not so recently is, wait a second, that toy belongs to Julie. So I'm going to need you to give that toy back to Julie because it belongs to her. She has a right to it. If you don't give it back to her, then I'm unfortunately going to have to take that toy from your hands and give it back to Julie. Are you okay with giving that toy to Julie, or would you like me to take it and give it to Julie? And so that is telling a child the consequences, what you're going to do in response to their actions. And that's a key way to set boundaries. You don't have to go around threatening people, but it is good to let a person know the impact that their actions have on you and what you might do in response, especially when their actions are continued or when a request is not honored. So, one final review on these concepts about anger and boundary setting. The goal here is to set your own boundaries, hopefully without having to cross the boundaries of other people. You do this by speaking about your own experience and not about others and the experience of others. This includes speaking about your own experience, stating what your experience seems like to you, stating what you would like your experience to be, or your intention, your request, inquiring into the experience of others, And finally, speaking for your actions, for your responses to what someone else's actions might be, or for what you can and cannot do given your current set of priorities. One other thing to mention, a lot of people will look at these concepts and really understand them, but for one reason or another will not be able to bring themselves to go through with them. Might be because of fear, or might be because they're too angry in the moment to even remember it. If that's the case, then that's something that a therapist or someone like myself would be able to help you with. A particular type of therapy that I know of that's very good with this is internal family systems therapy. You can check my website for links on how to get an internal family systems therapist. So I just want to give you a couple of places to go or things to look into if you are interested or curious in these topics. I know that I am, and I got a lot from several resources and several mentors of mine. First of all, a mentor of mine, Dick Schwartz, the founder of Internal Family Systems, that type of therapy taught me concepts like speaking for your parts. So this is another way of speaking for your experience. Part of me really feels angry right now, and another part of me feels really scared that you said that. So that's one example. The other concept that I get from internal family systems is the U-turn. So that's when you're talking about another person, taking a U-turn and turning it around, and actually speaking for what your experience is right now. You know, I feel angry, as opposed to you did something wrong. Another concept is nonviolent communication. Marshall Rosenberg, PhD, came up with a very good, concise 4-step process in having these difficult conversations and dealing with conflict. And it's really good. If you ever have a chance to go to a seminar on nonviolent communication, or read one of the books, or listen to one of the audio programs, there's a lot out there that Marshall Rosenberg and his colleagues and his students have released. So that pretty much does it for today. If there are any problems, of course, you can leave comments below, or you can shoot me an email. Thank you, and be well.